This is the original Audi S8, the car that proved that a luxury limousine could also be a backroad assassin. Forget the modern bloated Audis, this one weighs just 1,700 kilos. That's half a ton less than the current A8. And also, it hides one of the greatest V8 engines that Audi ever made. If it looks familiar, that's because you've seen it doing some very illegal things in the film Ronin. So, what makes it so special? Let's find out. Audi wasn't always considered competitive in this segment. The previous V8 was a decent car, but it wasn't really quite up to the standards of the 7 Series and the S-Class. So when Audi launched the A8 in 1994, it couldn't just be competitive, it had to smash the competition. After more than a decade in development, the D2 arrived with a world first. An all-aluminium space frame. The project was personally approved by Ferdinand Piëch and cost them $700 million in development. That's the equivalent of 1.6 billion today, just for the chassis. It wasn't just strong and light though, it had proportions which we can legitimately call timeless. Even today, it still looks fresh. I don't think that there is a bad angle on this car. 2 years later, Audi decided to make it faster. They took the 4.2 litre V8, added 40 horsepower and made this, the S8. The engine is naturally aspirated and for a limo it revs to a ridiculous 7,000 RPM. Peak torque is also at a lofty 3,400. Later cars like this one came with 5 valve heads. That brought the power up from 340 to 360 horses. That means 0 to 60 in 6.6 seconds, which doesn't sound earth-shattering today, but you've got to remember, that is with the Tiptronic slushy auto box, which is the only option they offered in the UK. In mainland Europe, you could get it with a 6-speed manual, and that brought the 0 to 60 down to 5.6 seconds, which is much more representative of the true performance of the S8. And just listen to the noise. For a luxury limousine, it's utterly glorious. Believe it or not though, you can average 20 to 25 miles to the gallon if you behave. Thing is, you probably won't. The aluminium construction saved weight, but the Quattro four-wheel drive system still added an extra 100 kilos. To cope, Audi gave it proper suspension, double wishbone at the front, multi-link at the rear, and additionally the S8 got suspension that was lowered by 20 mil all round. Base cars already look great, so for this, the changes were small. 18-inch wheels are standard, a deeper front spoiler, and a little S8 badge on the grille. This final edition has some extra goodies. 20-inch wheels, which look amazing, bi-xenon headlights, and inside, a standard Bose sound system and exclusive Napa leather. Now you could get it either in red like this one or in purple. In either case, it's not a combination which is for the shy and retiring. Now what really made this into a cult car was its starring role in Ronin. Let's see if it deserves that reputation. Now on the move, the engine is obviously a little bit more muted, but you still get enough noise in the cabin, even though it's very well insulated, just to be able to appreciate it. Now, the interior, apart from the red colouring, the changes for the S8s and so on were really quite subtle. So you had the different instruments. Is there an S8 badge somewhere else? I think there was, although I can't see it right now. But apart from that, that's pretty much it. The seats are Recaro Sport seats, but you could have them as an option in some of the lesser cars. Now there's a couple of things which are sort of hangovers from its time. It had all this extra equipment as part of being a final edition, so it was like TV ready, phone ready, etc. This particular car even has a PlayStation fitted, but as a result, on the back, there is not one, there's not two, there's 3 aerials. There's one for GPS, there's one for the radio, and one for the phone. And something else which I find quite amusing, just check the phone out. Oh, I don't know what they were thinking. This Nokia is also a real blast from the past, because these things, I remember you used to charge them up. They'd last about a week before you had to charge them again. Just imagine that now. One of the things that journalists in period said was that the ride was a little bit stiffer than you might expect in a luxury car. Driving it now on this, one of the really broken up local roads that I use, I can see what they're saying. Certainly if you're in a 7 Series or an S-Class of this period, the ride would be more cassetting. It's not uncomfortable, but you can feel a lot more of what's going on underneath than you would in those other cars. The interiors may not be that different for the S8, but it has the Teutonic build quality that Audi introduced at this time. Of course, the chassis is also uber stiff, which allowed them to use the stronger spring rates and damping to retain some of the body control that their competition couldn't quite match. What I'm really interested is in taking this engine through the gears, so I need to get it into sport, and then we won't try manual in this case. We'll just I'll do the manual on the other run, because these manual buttons, they're not very good, and the lever as well is a bit odd. It keeps on pulling all the way to 7,000 RPM. Fun, but a little bit undignified for a car of this kind. I think that 6.6 seconds 0 to 60 time doesn't really justify how quick it feels on the road. You know, don't let anyone tell you any different. This is still a quick car, and let's just see what happens if I put my foot down. I mean, yeah, it's just that gearbox sort of, I think, blunts the feel. It is in sport. Let's put it in, so with the manual gears, so 3rd gear manually. For a big car, you can really hustle it. And the steering is keen, much keener than you would expect. I think that ultimately there's no belying its true bulk, and when you're really throwing it around on these smaller roads, it does begin to feel a little bit ruffled. I do wonder what kind of buyer would have gone for one of these, because it's not quite as refined as the competition, but to me it looks a lot more modern, and if you want to have a bit of fun with it, it's not out of the question. I think some of the things that would be getting in the way is that the engine is quite far forward on that forward of the front axle. And also the steering is a little bit lacking in feel. It's quick enough and it's very responsive, but you just don't get a lot back in terms of what's happening with it. See what it's like on the tighter S's here. So get it into 3rd. Yeah, so the best way really is to just going a little bit slower, get the car settled, and then just pin it and let that Quattro 4-wheel drive system pull you out of trouble. Okay, we're going to try going through the gears again, and I'm going to do it manually, but I think I'm going to use this lever because these buttons they just don't feel very good, to be quite honest. my God, those gear changes are just so slow. I swear it feels like it's a full 2 seconds before it changes gear. You have to anticipate it before the corner. The other thing that's really annoying is this gear change. Actually, I'll tell you in a minute. Let me just enjoy this bit first. I mean, it's way better than a big car like this has any right to be on tight corners like that. The lack of feel from the front end can be a little bit disconcerting, but you've just got to trust that the grip is there, because the levels on this car are pretty gargantuan. One thing I was alluding to, which is really annoying with this, well, everything's annoying about this gear change, but one more thing is that the gear lever, when you do it manually like this, you would expect that to go up a gear, you would pull it back. That's normally what it is. That's instinctively how it would work. And then if you're going to drop a gear, you push it forward. But it's not like that. To go up a gear, it's the opposite. To go up a gear, you push it forward. So I would love to try one of these in manual, because I really think it would change the character of the car substantially. It's a really good car as it is, and the handling is great, but the gearbox really does get in the way. Now, one thing that is really nice with this being naturally aspirated, ooh, that was a lovely Aston of some kind. Anyway, with this being naturally aspirated is that it responds instantly. But there is a little bit of discord having this engine in this car. To make it go, you know, it does like to rev, and you can and have to use all the revs if you want to get all the performance. That's not instinctively the way it should be on a car of this type. It's not a complaint as such, because in any case, it works really well. It can do what it needs to do, but I can't help but think that something with a little bit more torque would have been more suited to this purpose. You know, when driving it on these sort of small, tight roads, I suddenly start thinking, oh, the body control is a little bit lax and the brakes are a little bit spongy. They don't feel like they're quite up to the task all the time. And then I remind myself, hold on, you're not in a little hatchback here. This is like a big luxury car. And then you realize what an incredible achievement this thing was. And that engine, although I love it, I think it really has no business being in this car. It's just too racy. So what do we make of the S8? I think it's almost a car which is in its own class. There's nothing quite like it. BMW didn't make an M version of the 7 Series. I don't think AMG were around doing S-classes at this point in time, but I may be wrong about that. But in any case, even if they did, neither of them would have handled as tidily as this. It's a bit like a giant GTI. Now, when you do get, you know, if you throw it in a corner too hard, you do find its limitations. Ultimately, it will understeer, despite the fact that it has gargantuan levels of grip. So what you've got to do is get it settled, go in slow, get in the right gear before you get to the corner, and then a little bit earlier than you normally would, just plant the throttle and just let that four-wheel drive system just claw you out. Body roll is minimal. Grip levels are massive. And suddenly you realize that although it may not be perfect, it did set the new benchmark in its class for handling. And if you wanted to get one of these today, I was surprised at just how few are for sale, and also that the diverging range of prices at which they're advertised. There's 2 cars on the market right now for around £10,000, which looks about right to me, but there's an outlier, a car with 160,000 miles, which is on for 24. The only thing I can think to compare it to, although it is a higher class, would be an E39 BMW. Now that is a tighter car, that is sharper, and it has better body control. But they're also a huge amount more money, because I think you're looking at about double the price. They start around 20, whereas a decent one of these, it looks like you can get for around £10,000. Now, if you enjoyed this, I'm sure you'll want to know about what I think was the VW Group's craziest luxury car, the Phaeton. So check that out there. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you to Neil for bringing it down today. Look forward to seeing you all for the next video.